Lord Deben, the former Environment Minister and the current chairman of climate change, the Climate Change Committee, has said, he's talked about veganism, and he says there's a confusion about veganism and climate change being put in the same sentence. He's saying they do it because they have other views about animals, but they have to accept their views are not about climate change. So there you see the conflict. He added that vegans must be prevented from utilizing climate change debates to promote a plant-based lifestyle. He says, Lord Deben says that some vegans were wrong to argue that eating meat was not environmentally friendly. It might be being nice to cows. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the environment. And Lord Deben said, what I do not want to see is people muddy the climate change issue for some other agenda. Vegans have got to fight their case on their own grounds. Wow, what do you think of that? Well, joining me now is Sandra Higgins, founder and director of Go Vegan World. Sarah, what do you think of what Lord Deben has said? Surely there's common sense in that.
Sandra is my name, actually.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Not at all.
I really apologise.
Not at all. Well, we disagree. It's the contribution of animal agriculture to environmental destruction, loss of biodiversity and climate change is neglected and very significant. So we're not, animal rights activists and vegans are not hiding anything. This is an intersectional idea that everybody needs to know about. It's people's right to know about it. So, what Lord Deben has said, and very interesting that actually he said this last November at a farmers' conference, which is very surprising for somebody on a climate change committee and somebody who's previously been an environment minister to say something like this, because there have been a plethora of scientific reports in the last few years, many of them coming from excellent institutes in the UK, and they show that the greenhouse gas emissions and the environmental impact of the highest impact plant foods are still lower than the lowest impact animal foods. So, some people recent reports like the University of Illinois are saying the impact of animal flesh is twice that of a plant diet. The IPCC reports, the United Nations report, the Eat Lancet reports, they are all in agreement that a nutritious diet that is sustainable, environmentally friendly, has to be based on plants. So far from being opponents.
Sorry, Sandra. So coming from the outside, what I'm looking at, and I have to say, I am not a meat eater. I'm a fish eater. I'm not a meat eater. I haven't been since 1980. But out of seasoned fruit and the carbon footprint of the transport, then you have things like artificial fertilizers used, avocados. One mature avocado tree needs 46 gallons of water every single day in summer. Then you look at mangoes. Then you look at, things like mushrooms. And, so there is a carbon footprint associated. When people say vegan, they think just anything. But surely even being veganism needs to be, do you think the information that I just a tiny bit of the information that I've given needs to be disseminated more? Because veganism, if you're going to eat fruit and blueberries, say, all year round, you're part of the problem. If you have, if mangoes or avocados, a lot of vegans, a lot of people will not think about, is this the right season or not? How much does it take to fly this to me? What is the carbon footprint? So is maybe that what Lord Deben is talking about?
No, that's not what he's talking about, because he has said, he's promoting animal agriculture. He's using circular reasoning to say that the animal rights agenda is that we have no animals, which it is. And if we have no animals, we can't farm animals. So that argument doesn't make any sense. So,
all right. But what about the carbon footprint?
What you've cherry picked a few items there that the science is that the plant foods that have the highest emissions are still lower than the animal foods with the lowest emissions.
So even fruit being thrown across the world. So even fruit being thrown across the world, it's still lower.
Regardless of how it's farmed or where it's produced, that is the science.
Mm.
I will say you've made a very interesting point there, because what's happening is that veganism and animal rights is being equated with the plant diet. It's not. It's part of a social justice movement that respects that we are all equals, regardless of our gender, regardless of our religion, regardless of our race, regardless of our species. And it's the idea that the human supremacist speciesist view that we have, that this world is ours and that all the resources in it belong to us, and that we can do what we like to meet our needs, and including our desires, things that we don't even need. That is what has led us to be living in the sixth extinction. So it's very important that we're aware of the impact of how we live on the world, and that we're not
Sandra, when you
said
sorry, I'm going to jump in there, because if I don't understand something, I'm just guessing that our listeners won't as well. You said the what extinction? We're living in the sixth extinction.
We're living in the sixth extinction. So
what does that mean?
We're facing an annihilation of life on Earth. And the future of our planet to sustain us, and the future as us as a species, is at risk at the moment. On a more minor level, anybody who is interested in the rights of others and the rights of farmers, far from calling vegans opponents of climate change, would be helping farmers to transition to a sustainable way of earning a living. And
does that mean, so let me jump in there. When you say sustainable way of earning a living, does that mean sustainable farming for an acceptance that people are going to eat meat, and many indigenous tribes, rely on meat, and what have you? Does that mean just making it more sustainable, or cutting out meat production altogether?
Yeah, it's not sustainable for us to farm other animals. There's no sustainable way of farming other animals. Never mind the fact that there's no moral way of creating another animal to meet our desires, because we consume other animals not for nutritional needs. We've no nutritional need whatsoever. We've no need whatsoever to use other animals.
But what about? Sorry, I'm going to. I have to put the other case. What about, for instance, Inuits? All those people who live. I mean, having visited those areas, you'd be lucky to see a blade of grass. I mean, there are certain areas and tribes around the world who, even if they wanted to go vegan, they couldn't. There's no way for an Inuit tribe or somebody living within the Arctic Circle to be vegan.
Well, again, you see, we can cherry pick, but the most damage being caused at the moment is being caused by the so-called Western nations. I mean, it's unbelievable to think that there are about 6 billion people eating animal products. The rest of the nations, very often the poorer nations, traditionally ate a plant diet or are suffering malnutrition or hunger. So 6 billion humans are responsible for the death of 60 billion land animals and trillions of fishes every year, causing absolute
Sandra, what would happen?
Catastrophe.
I don't eat meat, but what would happen in your ideal world where none of these animals were eaten, and they just kept, more and more and more fill the planet. They weren't killed or eaten. They're all giving off methane gas. Anyway, they're still eating the grass. How does that work?
They only exist because we create a demand for them. And that demand is sustained by animal agricultural practices and the advertising. So that ensures that people believe the myth that animal products are necessary for their health and that they're nice and normal and natural. They wouldn't exist if we didn't create this demand. So
they do. So where do they go if we stop eating meat?
Where do they will be extinct in about 25 years maximum. I mean, the first thing to do is put a no breeding program in place. We have done this in Ireland with farmers who, for moral reasons, have decided to exit animal agriculture and have a number of animals And what we do is straight away put a no breeding program in place so that there is no further breeding. Remember that these animals are not natural to this part of the world. In fact, they're not natural at all because they've all been selectively bred to maximise the profit for the industry in terms of the amount of muscle mass they produce that we eat as flesh, the amount of milk they produce to feed their calves that we take from them, and the number of eggs that they
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, factory farming is absolutely abhorrent. And, you know, I've talked about how you can see the white stripes in chicken meat from the enforced growth of chicken meat. But do you really honestly think that this message is going to hold traction for most of the world? You know, and then what happens? Do you think a country like, for instance, the UK could sustain its population on a vegetable based diet? Surely they would still have to ship in, fly in stuff from all over the world. I mean,
I'll go back. Sure. Well, first of all, I will say that what's awful is not factory farming. What's awful is to breed a living, feeling being who has the same feelings as your cat or dog, or actually the same feelings that you have, and values their life as much as you do, and, you know, make them live a life of torture and kill them for something that we don't need, that we don't need for our health, and that's very environmentally damaging.
So you're saying it's kinder just to let them die, just let them live and die and not breed them anymore?
Yes, I mean, I run a sanctuary. I have, you know, almost 300 animals on my sanctuary. We give them the very best that we can. We rescue them from the animal agricultural industry. It's very sad to see how short their lifespans are because of the effects of selective breeding, but we created them, you know, 12,000 years ago. We domesticated wild animals, and they are the ancestors of the animals that we farm today, and that is what is wrong. But to go back to your other question, again, I would go back to the science, and it's very important. It's very sad to see somebody like Lord Deben being, you know, so opposed to the science. And a very good report was produced in 2019, if memory serves me correctly, by Harvard University. And, you know, they showed that if land in the UK that's currently used to farm animals was converted to forestry, and a very, very small amount of land that we need to produce crops to feed ourselves, we could reduce our greenhouse gas emissions radically and still have all the nutrients that we need in our diet. Time and time again, the reports have shown this. You know, Marcos.
But Sandra, would you accept that veganism, again, within veganism, needs to look at, for instance, eating fruit outside, you know, whatever the carbon footprint, and there's a responsible way of being a vegan, as opposed to a lot of people now probably don't know all of the science that you're talking about. It's more either visceral or emotional, but there is considerable science about what you eat and where you eat and where it comes from, and how you can reduce the carbon footprint of this stuff being flown up from all four corners of the world.
Sure. So I would say to your listeners, consult the science. And the science is that the highest impact plant foods have a lower damaging effect, lower greenhouse gas emissions than the lowest impact animal foods. So
you're saying you shouldn't care about where it comes from?
You will, no, what I'm saying is please listen to the science. You will struggle to find a piece of fruit that has been flown from another country with higher greenhouse gas emissions than an animal product produced locally. That is the science. The kind of science that Lord Deben is promoting, such as the local grass-fed beef, is a myth. Grass-fed beef emits way more methane and nitrous oxide, uses way more land than the equivalent of plant products. Yes, vegans, of course, the same as it's wrong of a vegan to be racist, it's wrong of a vegan to be sexist. We all have to address our consumerism. I'm a psychologist, you know, as well as running a sanctuary. I have a clinical practice. The idea that we've all bought into, that you have to buy something to feel that you're okay and to feel happy, it's very, very wrong. We need to address this. But please, don't get caught in the intricacies. Look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that we need to stop consuming and animal products and creating a market.
Sandra, thank you so much for your time. Sandra Higgins there, founder and director of Go Vegan. Well, what do you think? What do you think? Is it realistic for you to go vegan? Are you destroying the planet by having a roast this Sunday? Do you not care? It's a very nuanced idea. A lot of people become vegan for all sorts of reasons. Would you become vegan? What do you think of what Sandra had to say? Give me a call. The number is 0344 499 1000, 0344 499 1000. You can text talk in your message to 87222. Tweet at talkRADIO. Quick reminder, you can watch live on YouTube, Twitter, or download the talkRADIO TV app and watch us there.